love our musical entries. Thank you, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Sheena Wright, and I am the first deputy mayor of the city of New York. And for the past year, I have been the very proud co-chair to Mayor Adams' Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. From the very first day of this administration, the mayor has focused on keeping New Yorkers safe. And as we walked in the door in this administration, he made clear to every single leader, and you'll see so many agency leaders here and other leaders in this administration, that it was a collective responsibility. It was not just for the NYPD and other law enforcement officials, but it was for each and every one of us to make sure that that was a part of our remit in the work that we would do. He says often, you've heard it many times, we have to go upstream. And that's what every single agency in this city and mayoral office is focused on, making sure that we prevent the causes that create gun violence. Because every single person who is the victim of gun violence is one too many, and every person who picks up a gun and fires it is one too many. When he called us all together, every city agency in the city, and said, what is your contribution going to be to ending gun violence and creating community well-being in the city of New York? These agencies answered the call. He wanted us to be very focused on data and information. Precision is a word that he uses often. He made sure and really commanded us to engage with communities. This was not something that can be done by City Hall alone. We had to be in partnership, arm in arm with the communities that were most impacted. And we knew that in order for the plan to work, we had to address the root causes. So 1 year later, here we are. We've held many meetings, and I'm so grateful to have had the partnership of my co-chair, A.T. Mitchell, workshops with agencies, and very importantly, went on the ground in communities, engaging over 1,500 New Yorkers, including 800 young people, to really understand what we needed to do. Today, we're unveiling these recommendations as part of our blueprint for community safety. The blueprint details programs that are already preventing gun violence and maps out core strategies to strengthen them and align them even further. Everything from the work that we do for summer youth employment to our Be Heard programs and other programs and initiatives addressing mental health. What we understood when we came together was that access to jobs, employment opportunities, how our commercial corridors are doing, the state of housing, the state of our public housing, as well as even sanitation. All of these things contribute to community well-being and community safety. And so this blueprint recognizes that all of those things have to work together. It is both a public health and a community development approach. So this blueprint would not be possible without so many incredible partners, certainly the leaders that are here today, but also many institutional partners. We are joined here by members from John Jay, leaders in criminal justice, many CMS providers that are on the front lines doing the work every single day. Everytown for Gun Safety, which is a national organization that has been focused on this effort, as well as the United Way of New York City that has been an important partner. I'm very grateful that the team internally has been working extremely hard on these issues, and we have all been led fearlessly by our mayor, Eric Adams. Mayor Adams?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Deputy Mayor, First Deputy Mayor Wright. And I just cannot say enough about the number of conversations the governor and I have had together on this issue. We started out everything from dealing with transit safety to just so many other issues, and just being a real partner. And A.G. James, for just looking at everything from the types of guns, going after the gun manufacturers, just really damming all of these rivers. I say it over and over again, there are many rivers that feed the sea of violence. And the partners you see here today, from the Attorney General, the Governor, amazing DAs in both the Bronx and Manhattan and Brooklyn, Staten Island and Queens, taking down gun crews and what they're doing, finding the right balance of how do we go after proactively dealing with the guns. And this is something that Public Advocate Williams has talked about for years. I remember during the days of being a council person and being a borough president, and even going back as far as being a state senator, talking about the many issues that impact gun violence and how do we have a proactive approach to it. But you can look at government. This is our job. Our job is to do this, but it is not A.T. Mitchell's job. He is not elected or hired by government. And the number of days that I have responded to crime scenes, shootings throughout this city, sat in hospitals, watched the men and women of the crisis management system respond. They don't have bulletproof vests. They don't have helicopters. They don't have the artillery that the law enforcement community currently possess, but they've been doing the job. AT, you are just a symbol of the entire crisis management operation on the front line every day. And I cannot thank you enough for over almost 40 years of friendship, watching you do this work in a real way, saving lives. Thank you so much for it. And many are here. You know, these crisis management men and women are here. And they were not new to me. I've known them for so many years, and they looked towards this administration and say, we can just hold on long enough for Eric to be the mayor because he gets it. Right. You know, so our time has arrived, you know, our time has arrived, and now we have to get something done. There's a small window of opportunity to bring the level of aggressiveness that we need, intervention and prevention. We've been doing the intervention and what was needed. And I said over and over again, public safety is a prerequisite to prosperity. Public safety and justice is a prerequisite to prosperity. It is what I campaigned on, it's what I promised, and what I committed to the people of this city. And you're seeing the results. Homicides are down. Shootings are down. We're zeroing in on those extreme recidivist individuals through July 29. Shootings in New York City have declined compared to the same period last year. And just think about this number for a moment. Since taking office, we have removed 11,000 guns off our streets. 11,000 guns. And the removal of those guns, we cannot do it effectively or correctly if we didn't have the right partnership with our district attorneys, and all that they had to go through on dealing with the new changes of laws. They stood up and they still handled the cases appropriately with the partnership of our partners in Albany, both in the Senate and Assembly, and the leadership of the governor. Our actions has contributed to New York City being the safest big city in America. Sometimes those random acts of violence, like we witnessed over the weekend, it sort of takes away from the correct narrative. New York City is the safest big city in America, and we need to be clear on that. And I think that we need to letting people know that over and over again. And this is a direct result of what we're doing. We know it's work. That's why the work of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, led by Deputy Mayor Wright, with all the stuff you have on your plate, you know, Sheena, you just, you know, dug into this and delivered a qualitative product. You know, listen, I knew what I was doing. You know, job well done, job well done. And so we're making a historical step that I believe is going to cascade throughout the entire country. With this new blueprint for community safety, we're not just talking about it, we're spending about it also. We are going to allocate $481 million to this plan that will double down on public safety efforts, invest in our most impacted communities. The map is clear. You do an analysis of the map, you see high gun violence, you're also going to see high unemployment. You're going to see dropout rates high. You're going to see mental health issues high. You do an overlay in a GPS mapping system of this, and you will see the same problems are isolated and concentrated in the same community. And this is what Chancellor Banks has been talking about over and over again, that if we don't start really being more proactive, we're going to be in a constant, perpetual cycle of being reactive. And that is not what this administration is about. We're an upstream mindset so that we could prevent people from falling in the river, that we don't have to pull out of the river downstream. We're going to activate every level of city government because it's a holistic approach, and we're going to prioritize prevention-based approaches to public safety. It is the result of a cross-agency collaboration that brought together our teams from 20 city agencies specializing in public safety, healthcare, workforce development, education, and more. The way to deal with these issues is to approach it in a holistic way and partner with our amazing former Commissioner Sewell, and now picking up the reins of the current Commissioner, Eddie Caban. We're going to continue these partnerships in a real way and continue with our state partnerships. And I just want to emphasize the role that the Governor and Attorney General has played with our partners, both in the Senate and Assembly, both those leaders, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie and Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousin. This is our way of saying this is an all hands on deck moment. The First Deputy Mayor Wright is correct. The people, everyday people sitting in the meetings, having good solutions, sharing them with us. We cannot thank them enough, coming to meetings over and over again as we put this plan into place. Time and time again, community members advocated for their needs and proposed these real solutions because they know better than anyone. That ending gun violence requires more than enforcement, more than policing, far much more. It requires attention and investment. That is why this blueprint is on a community development approach that focuses on preventive measures and long-term strategies. We sought out to answer a key question over and over again that we heard. How can we stop the violence before it happens on our streets? the number of youth town halls we did across the city with young people, I was blown away. People often want to define this for young people. Every town hall, two things came up over and over again. Public safety, better relationship with police, and dealing with mental health. Over and over again, all the town halls we did with these young people, they were more forward-thinking than anyone else. And I did not hear one town hall that they stated they wanted their school safety agents out of their schools. So I don't know who other folks are talking for, but those young people had a relationship with their school safety agents, and they wanted them in their school. They don't want to be abused. They want to be treated with the respect and dignity that they deserve, and that's what this plan is all about. We sought out answers, and we got the answers. We looked at housing, employment, benefit access, community vitality, trauma-informed care. How many times we hear that, AT? Trauma-informed care over and over again. And early interventions to protect our youth. Our city must start intervening earlier and focus on positive youth development before it is too late. That means increased investment and support for our young people, like $22.5 million towards the Department of Youth Community Development's Work, Learn, Grow program that offers year-round employment opportunities. And it's about the jobs, jobs. That's why we're doing the hiring halls. But we also are investing $6.6 million for job training for our out-of-school and out-of-work youth. 18 to 24, the countless number of young people who are not in school, they're not working, they're not in training, they're doing nothing at all. Someone must throw them a lifeline and tell them there's a better road and a better opportunity, and that's what we're doing. We're going to increase access to jobs, training, and career opportunities, and the important work being done by our CMS providers and our violence interrupters. who can mediate conflict before they erupt into gun violence. You know, I see you sister out there in Harlem all the time doing this on the front line, responding to jobs. And thanks to the funding from our partners in Albany in the philanthropic sector, we are taking these groups' work to the next level, increasing wraparound service for at-risk youth. We see them, we see the profile, we know what happened, learning disabilities, mental health issues, dropped out of school, a foster care system. We know the pattern, so why are we waiting and allowing them to pick up a gun instead of giving them an opportunity and picking them up in the process? And giving providers operational support so they can worry less about paperwork and more about saving lives. All of these requires more than just investment, it requires trust. That's why we must rebuild community and police relationship from the ground up. And this is such an important role that Commissioner Mark Stewart and our Commissioner Eddie Caban is doing. What Commissioner Stewart is doing in the community affairs, he has redefined the community affairs unit to build those relationships between police and community. And that relationship is not severed all over the city. Some communities embrace their police because of their interactions, others fear their police. We're going to dismantle that wall, and we're going to allow our community and police to work in operation. That is what this police department is doing under the leadership of Commissioner Caban and the Community Affairs Commissioner Mark Stewart. These efforts will begin with neighborhoods in Brooklyn, in the 73rd and 75th precincts, and in the Bronx, in the 40, 42, 44, and 47 precincts, and would expand to other neighborhoods across the city over time. We must dam every river that leads to the sea of violence. A lot of work, a lot of effort went into this document. You know, my life work went into this. I know the importance of this. I know what it represents to far too many. And if you have never gone to a crime scene, if you have never stopped in a hospital and talked to a mother who experienced violence or a dad, if you've never really heard the cries, you cannot do this work in the bleachers. You can't be a detached spectator. You have to get on the full field of dealing with this on the front line. There's never been a mayor in the history of this city that brings more information in this area and have been on the front line as much as I have. And so when I first became mayor, people were asking, you know, why do you go to the crime scenes? Why do you sit in the hospital? Why do you speak? Because if you don't have a clear understanding of what this is impacting, if you're not the DA that goes, or the Darcel or Eric Gonzalez that go to these scenes and speak to the loved ones and the family members, you can't sit in the ivory tower. You can't be so detached in the sterilized environment of City Hall. The dirt and grime is on the street. And I see it, I saw it, and it empowered me to bring together my administration. We have to start the process of ending this violence. And I'm just blessed at this moment, the intersectionality of the governor, of the AG, of groups of DAs, of community activists. We've all come together with all of our agencies, and we're going to do the best we can. And this is going to be perfect? Hell no, we're perfectly imperfect, but goddamn, we're dedicated, and we're going to fight this head on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Adams. And as you can see, that's why we're here. And we are incredibly grateful. Everyone in this administration is so grateful to be lockstep and in partnership, arm in arm with this governor who has seen this as a key priority. And we're very grateful for your partnership on this effort as well. And we will continue the work in the days ahead. Governor Hochul.
Good morning. Good morning. This is what a strong, healthy, productive relationship between the state of New York and the city of New York looks like, if you've not seen it much before. united together in a common cause to eradicate crime and violence and pain from communities. That is what Mayor Adams and I have talked about incessantly. It's what we wake up thinking about. We go to bed thinking about how we can roll up our sleeves and work together to not rest on the laurels of this being not just the safest big city in America, but you also live in the safest big state in America. But that's not good enough for us. We're going to keep raising the bar because every New Yorker deserves the security of going to bed at night themselves, knowing that they and their children and their loved ones are safe. So I thank Mayor Adams for helping us redefine the relationship between two very important governments and letting the people know that the era of the governor and the mayor fighting each other is over. That's right. That we're going to fight for the people of New York. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you to an extraordinary Attorney General who also understands that lessons we can take from New York City and what you're doing here, Mayor, with your incredible team can be applied throughout our state, and we are committed to making sure that happens as well. Attorney General Tish James. And I want to thank the First Deputy Mayor, Sheena Wright, and A.T. Mitchell for dedicating the last year of your life to this, but your entire lives to this. And we will look back on this time and say, this is when we truly began a change, that people started really believing that their leaders are committed. And I thank you for the energy behind this blueprint. I think it looks extraordinary. I've actually read it, spent a lot of time traveling, and I've read every word of it. And it makes sense to look at this problem from so many different facets. It's not just a policing issue, but thank God for we have the finest police in the world right here in New York City, along with our state police. I need to say our state police as well. But thank you. Also, our public advocate, Jumaane Williams. We've had many conversations about the role of what a community can do to a person, whether they have a good education and decent housing, and how that can affect their outcomes in life. And I want to continue working with you, our great public advocate, Jumaane Williams. Let's give him a round of applause. And our district attorneys, who are out there every single day. And in fact, when they're not on the streets doing their work, Darcel Clark and Eric Gonzalez, they're up in Albany helping us make sure that the language of the laws are allowing you to do your jobs and that you receive the resources that you so desperately need. And we did deliver on that this year. So let's give a round of applause to our district attorney. I've decided to not work independently on this issue, that I'm literally deploying my top aides to be embedded with this task force so we can get results for the city, but also that we can use for the rest of the state, and that's how we're going to do it. I also know that we have some backlogs in our courts. It happened before, but really was exacerbated by the pandemic when so many trials never happened, and as a result, you have two scenarios. One is that people are languishing in Rikers, waiting for their day in court because the system is so backlogged and jammed up, and that is not justice. But also we have people who are still on the streets who need their day in court, so if necessary and justice demands, they end up behind bars. So that is why in my budget, I said, how can we help our district attorneys and our public defenders get to the right place? So we allocated $170 million, first time ever, record investment in both those sides of the equation to make sure that justice is truly achieved. I also am supporting the effort with the summer youth program, the employment program, because young people don't just need a diversion, a healthy diversion and adult supervision in the summer months. They need help and engagement throughout the year. That's right. So we're allocating $24 million to you can help replicate what you do in the summer all year round. I think that's going to make a difference for our kids as well. We talk about getting guns off the street. It's extraordinary, the number of guns off the streets, not just here, but across the state. I was just in Buffalo talking about this on Friday. I convened my first couple months as governor, not just an statewide effort where we literally have NYPD embedded with state police, our leaders across the state, federal partners. But I said, let's take it to the other states because we're not making the guns here. They're not made in Brooklyn. They're not made in the Bronx. They're not made in Buffalo. They're coming in from other states. So why aren't we working with the other states, especially the enlightened 9 around us, and say, we're on the same team here. Help us stop the illegal guns from coming into our streets. And that's what we're doing. And that's one of the reasons why the numbers are being dramatically changed, the number of guns off our streets. But one more area we made a big difference. The extreme risk orders of protection, the red flag laws. After we had the massacre in my hometown of Buffalo where 10 people were slaughtered grocery shopping because of the color of their skin, we went back to Albany. We said we need to beef up these red flag laws and literally require that when a scenario happens where someone is in danger of doing harm to themselves or to others, that we have the power of society to protect ourselves and get their guns, if they own them, out of their hands before they hurt a human being. And we have taken over 9,000 cases where extreme risk orders of protection, that is up 600% from what had been happening before. That's another way we're getting more guns off the streets, because I'd rather be in the business of preventing crimes than solving crimes. And that's an important strategy as part of that. So, Mayor, I'm also focused on 2 more elements of your pillars that you've identified. One is housing. I think most New Yorkers know I want more housing. I want more affordable housing because every New Yorker deserves the dignity of a safe, decent home in a good neighborhood. And young people who grew up in a zip code that does not offer that have strikes against them from the very first day. And we're going to change that. We're going to keep building. And that's how you drive down the cost of housing, by adding more supply. And the last area I want to mention, Mayor, because this is so important to all of our efforts here, mental health. Now people are finally talking about it because there was always a stigma associated with it. People didn't ask for help, and very few people want to go into the profession. We're changing all that. This year's budget, I want to thank our leaders in Albany, Majority Leader Andre Stewart-Cousins and Speaker Carl Hastie, for teaming up with me to say, this is an enormous problem we cannot not play small ball anymore. That's right. We're going big. $1 billion commitment to help the whole continuum of care needed for mental health services. That's how you start changing lives. So, Mayor, I have a long speech here. I'm not going to deliver it because this is from the heart. Just as you are here because of the person that your profession turned you into, as someone who knows you've seen so much on the streets and now you're in a position to do something about it. That is powerful, my friends. That is powerful. But working with our violence disruptors and putting more money from the state to help people like AT, I've tripled the investment in programs that I know are working because I've seen it from the streets of Buffalo all the way to Brooklyn. We're making a difference with people who are talking about their own life's experiences. They may have had time in jail. They may have been part of a gang, but they also know that they're the ones who can be the trusted voice in a community where young people will trust them more than they're going to trust the governor or the mayor. That's how we're changing this as well. So, Mayor, I want to commend you and your team for your commitment, your dedication to doing what's right, what people expect, what is needed. You've always been, but I'm here to show the united front that we have, the state, the city, all of our partners against crime and protecting the citizens of our streets. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Governor Hochul. Our next speaker is certainly not a stranger to the city, although she represents the entire state. We claim her as ours, and I know Brooklyn really thinks they have a hold on you, but you represent all of us, and someone who, as the mayor said, of her own lived experience she brings to the job every day as she represents us as Attorney General for the state of New York, Tish James.
So I don't need to step, but Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that kind introduction. I truly appreciate it. I want to thank the Mayor of the City of New York, the Governor of the great state of New York, A.T. Mitchell, of course, my colleagues in law enforcement, District Attorney Eric Gonzalez and District Attorney Darcel Clark, and also our Police Commissioner, who I had the opportunity yesterday to dance with in the Bronx, Police Commissioner Caban. This is the whole of government. And we want to thank the Mayor of the City of New York. The Deputy Mayor was correct. I am no stranger to this issue. For the last 25 years, unfortunately, the Mayor and I and countless number of others who are here on the steps, we've attended too many funerals. We've held too many mothers and fathers over open caskets. We've been to too many hospitals. We've been at too many crime scenes. We've buried too many black and brown boys, particularly boys. The number one cause of death for black boys is homicide. The number one cause. And I can think, I've been through a number of mayors as a former city council member, as a former public advocate of the city of New York. I have visited and talked to a number of mayors, but I can think of no other mayor who has made this a top priority, who campaigned on this issue, and someone who not only talks about it, but has acted on it, because we are in a state of crisis. And so I want to thank, on behalf of all of the individuals that I represent, and particularly in those precincts that were mentioned, all of the individuals who have lost loved ones, all of the individuals who no longer have a son or a daughter at a dining room table. I want to thank the Mayor of the City of New York, Eric Adams. Yes. Because we know that gun violence plagues our community every single day and has taken far too many lives in this city and in upstate and in this country. But many of us standing here know painfully well that gun violence does not impact our communities equally. We know that the daily shootings and gun-related deaths in New York City are mostly concentrated in a small portion of our neighborhoods. And they are disproportionately claiming young black and brown men. And they are disrupting their lives and the lives of countless number of New Yorkers. And it's unfortunate that people of color cannot do innocent and common things, like going to a barbecue or a block party, or walking to a park, or going to school, or walking around our neighborhood without the fear of gun violence. That's not natural. And that's why we've got to treat this as the crisis that it is, and bring the whole of government to the table. So today, Mayor Adams is making good on his long-standing commitment to public safety by investing in targeted and community-driven measures to get the guns out of our neighborhoods. Because as the governor mentioned, I don't know of any gun manufacturer in Brooklyn. That's right. Or Manhattan, or the Bronx, Queens, or Staten Island, or even upstate. But they're brought here on the Iron Pipeline, I-95, all of these states with lax gun laws. And although we represent the whole of government, the reality is that Congress can do more. That's right. The fact is that as the Attorney General, I know that these gun manufacturers and distributors are immune. I cannot sue them because of this immunity that has been put in place by Congress. Protections to the gun manufacturers and gun distributors. Product liability doesn't even apply to any of them. Yet we see the carnage each and every day, and the parents turn to us and say, something has to be done. Those 10 people who were slaughtered in Buffalo, who simply went shopping at the top supermarket. The question that they ask is, will we be successful, Tish, in our litigation? And I don't know the answer. The mayor's plan represents an incredible investment that will help us continue our work. The work that we are doing each and every day to target the root of gun violence by investing in our youth and ensuring that they have an opportunity from a young age, expanding access to housing. And let me say it again, housing, housing, housing. And not just affordable housing, but supportive housing. Supportive housing for individuals struggling with MICA, mentally ill, chemically addicted individuals. Organizations that were closed under previous administrations now need to be opened. More support for the violence interrupters who are on the ground each and every day because of their lived experiences. Putting in the real and necessary work to improve police and community relations, because believe it or not, despite what you may say, there's communities that want the police on their blocks. They know the police. They want to establish a relationship with the police. They respect the police, but they want the police to respect them as well. Because when you give people an opportunity, when you give them a job, when you give them a home, when you see them, when you talk to them, when you respect them, you are giving them hope and purpose and letting them know that the government is there to serve them, not to ignore them. And when we give our children, our kids, places to be in after-school programs where they can learn and recognize that they too can one day be the Attorney General of the state of New York, and let them know that we want to get involved in their activities and increase funding in parks and open spaces. These new programs will go a long way, my friends, in addressing so many of the issues that we are seeing at the local level, and will build on all of the important work that we're doing each and every day to crack down on gun violence. It's an honor and a privilege to work with my district attorneys as we take down gun rings, as gangsters and members of gangs all across the city of New York. I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that the mayor and I stood together and we sued those companies that were illegally selling ghost guns, those unserialized guns that unfortunately are undetected and pose a threat to law enforcement. We've worked together, all of us here, to take down these gun trafficking rings and hosted a number of gun buybacks. Since everybody's boasting about their numbers, as the Attorney General, I've removed 7,000 guns. But the fact is that the mayor and the governor now are coordinating all of us, and we're all working in one purpose, and that is to address the scourge of gun violence, which has taken too many young men. Too many young men. I want to thank him. I want to thank his administration. I want to thank the Deputy Mayor, Sheena Wright. And yes, Mayor, you did the right thing by appointing all of these women to positions of leadership. Thank you every day for making New York better and greater. Thank you so much for addressing the scourge of gun violence. I am committed to removing as many guns as possible as the Attorney General. And I'm committed to working with law enforcement, and I'm committed to working with all of my colleagues in government each and every day to continue to make New York City and New York State the safest place in America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney General. Next up, we have someone who has been fighting for these issues in these communities his entire career and has worked in partnership with this administration, and we're grateful for his leadership. Public Advocate Jumaane Williams. Yes.
Peace and blessing, love and light to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing us all here. Thank you to Governor, AG, First Deputy Mayor, and A.T. Mitchell, and all of CMS, the DAs who were here. First, I want folks to know and understand how dope this really is. You have city and state government standing together on the same page, fighting gun violence. Doesn't happen all the time, so we got to celebrate when it does, because many of us have been asking for this for a very, very long time. So I want us to make sure we take a moment to celebrate that. And I remember Victor, when I was growing up, was the first person I know where I lived who was shot and killed. I remember I was old enough to understand something bad happened, but not really aware of how and where to put it in. And as I went to high school, Terea Starnes, Jeffrey Whitehead, Alex Rodriguez, people, Dominique Sylvester, people were getting shot and killed when I was in high school. And what I was told is the influx of police in the communities were to stop the shootings that never stopped. And we're here now only have added lots and lots of names to those that I have just mentioned. And I began to understand, I think, what people know right now, because if I was to ask you to think of a safe community, you would not think of a community that has the most police and most arrests in it. No one does. The precincts that are chosen here have those things, but we still don't consider them safe. And that's not because, as was mentioned, our law enforcement don't have a role to play, but it's because for far too long we've asked them to play all of the roles that were needed in these communities. That's a really important distinction to point out, and it's something that so many of us agree on but have trouble pushing forward. We have to also know, as many, we are the safest big city in this country and one of the safest. We have to mention that, even though the media sometimes doesn't. But what we also know is that means nothing to the people who are being killed and their families who are left behind, and we have a lot of work left to do. Now, I'm proud of the work I did on the task force to combat gun violence in the city council, which AT was a part of. I got to shout out Kay Bain, who was there from the beginning when we got this money, and the work that he's doing across the country. He was definitely part of the problem. Y'all wouldn't want to know him way back then. But he's a huge part of the solution now. And I've worked with 3 administrations. The first one was a little skeptical. The second one put some great funding into it. But what I felt was like there was as we were growing, the CMS was growing, there was a stagnation of the work that needed to happen, particularly around when the pandemic hit and crime rose. But what I want to lift up from this administration and this mayor is the granular level work that we're trying to do now, the infrastructure that we've been pushing to be built in these communities. We understand infrastructure, we understand granular level work, but for some reason we only understand it with the NYPD. And what this blueprint, in my mind, will do, will ask the commissioner of the DOE, the commissioner of housing, the commissioner of ACS, and all of the folks that should be doing the ground level work to be structured in a way in these communities that need the most resources because they've been starved for far too long. Because in one zip code, just by virtue of where you were born, you have to work really, really, really hard to fail at life. And 2 miles down the road, just because of the virtue of where you were born, you have to work really, 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 really hard just to survive. And the question is why, and what are we doing to fix that? Now, this work has to be invested in, even through short headlines and long political campaigns. Because sometimes those things damage this work as we ask people's emotions to override their intelligent thought and thinking when it comes to public safety. But we have to push through the naysayers, and we have to push through it, because I have lost count of the funerals that I've gone to for people who look like me and held too many mothers that look like mine. And they're still dying. And New York City can be a leader when it comes to this. And so I have been pushing for this. I'm so glad that it's here. Thank you for the work that's being done. Mr. Mayor, my guess is in the days and the weeks, we may have some conversations about how best to put the plan forward. I think that's going to happen. But today, we have to all stand together and commend you for putting this forward, a step toward the infrastructure we've been trying to get for so long. So I thank you for that. I thank you for having me here. I thank you all. We've been trying to get to this place for a long time. Please, let's continue to go out and save some lives. The answer to public safety is not locking up as many black and brown people as possible. It's in investing in the communities that have been disinvested for such a long time. Peace and blessing, love and light to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Public Advocate. And our next 2 speakers before we have my co-chair, AT, close us out, are our district attorneys. As the mayor said, we are focused on initially 6 precincts, which make up approximately 30% of the gun violence in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. And these fearless leaders have been partnering with us and tackling it head on. So first up, DA Eric Gonzalez, I'd like to bring you up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and it's a proud moment for me as Brooklyn District Attorney to be with our mayor and with our governor, our great attorney general, first deputy mayor Sheena Wright, A.T. Mitchell, and our public advocate Jumaane Williams. Because when I first became district attorney, I issued a plan for Brooklyn, and it was a safety plan, but it was a plan about moving forward. And it obviously acknowledges that the district attorney's office and our New York City Police Department has to focus on enforcement, that we have to make sure that each and every day we're waking up thinking about how do we make our city safer. And we've done tremendous work in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the safest municipality in this state. But it's an enforcement piece, but it's also investment. And the mayor's plan that I was able to review and be part of and be a partner in is about how do we build community. If we look in Brooklyn, and I bet it's the same throughout all of our boroughs, it's the same 4 or 5 precincts that have dogged us for 30 plus years. It's the same neighborhoods, the neighborhood I grew up in East New York, and in Brownsville, and East Flatbush, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. We can name them. Neighborhoods that have been historically underinvested in. And the mayor's plan is not just an enforcement plan, it's a plan about building this community up. Because we understand that if we build people, if we provide them with life skills and social mobility opportunities, that people can leave the guns behind. And when we invest in community and police relations, young men do not have to carry guns to feel safe. They can rely on the apparatus of government and public safety to do that work. So many young men come through my office arrested on gun charges, and when we speak to them, we ask them, why are you carrying a gun? It's because they don't feel safe in their own community, and they don't see a future for themselves. Bringing these resources, housing, education, employment, and building them and connecting them to our CMS workers, investing in those people is the only way that we can expect young people to trust us and to leave the guns behind. And so, Governor, thank you for your investment in our local initiatives and putting in so much money. I appreciate and I'm thankful for all that you have done for the DAs around discovery. Mayor, you've been a tremendous partner to my office and to all the district attorneys, and I stand able and willing to support you in this effort with your first deputy mayor and A.T. Mitchell, and of course my fellow DAs and our great new police commissioner, Eddie Caban. This is going to work, and I know it's going to work because the mayor helped fund a program very similar to what he's building out in these 6 precincts in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And we have a small project. It's a project that's looking at a small number of gang-involved young men, and we've challenged them to leave the guns behind. And to date, in that area where this program is running, that the mayor supported with his funding, gun violence has virtually ceased. Good luck.
Good morning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you. Governor, thank you. AG Tish James, thank you. A.T. Mitchell, thank you. Jumaane, thank you for those kind words. I'm standing here as a district attorney of the Bronx to say thank you, not just for myself and the work that I have to do every day, like my colleague Eric Gonzalez, but for the 1.5 million people of the Bronx are saying thank you. That finally, an investment is going to happen in our borough for public safety. I have been raising sand for 8 years as DA. You all know that I am not a shrinking violet, so you're never going to have me just standing silently speaking about the things that we need. And I'm speaking here today saying thank you because finally we're not going to operate in silos anymore, but we're going to put the investment in the communities that need it most so that the people could be safe. That's what they want us to do. That's what we're supposed to do. So this shouldn't be just a celebration like, oh, we're doing something good. We're supposed to be doing something good. And I'm glad that we're finally recognizing that we can all get together and get this done. And it takes money, and it takes responsibility, and it takes trust of all these people standing behind me. I'm looking at so many of these people I know. This is community. This is not just government. This is government and community and law enforcement. This is a shared responsibility. Everybody plays a role in public safety. So when I had my Safer Bronx Through Fair Justice initiative, that's what I talked about, not just the prosecution that I have to do. I get that. I can do that. But what I really need the help is in the prevention to keep people from coming into the system in the first place. To keep them from making those bad choices of picking up that gun in the first place. And the only way that we could do this work, this task force being the #1 priority in getting this happening, because we had to listen to the people that it affected most. We could all sit up in our offices every day and think about what the city needs and what our communities need. But guess what? We don't know unless we're down there with them. We're out there with them. And I have walked these streets. I have hugged too many mothers. I have talked to too many young men. I have seen babies killed on the streets of the Bronx. I am tired of it. And I needed help. And here it is now. Here is the help. That's what we need. Jamani Williams said, it's the safest neighborhoods don't have the most police. Yeah, we got police. It has the most resources. And I grew up in the Bronx my whole life. I was there when the Bronx was burning. Those same communities still don't have the resources. Those are the same communities where the kids have the guns now, where there's no jobs, where there's mental health, where the schools are poor. And there's no jobs, and they're going to jail. And look, I'm the only one standing up here that can say I have sentenced people to life in prison, being a former judge. Presiding over cases where I've seen young black and brown men being sentenced because they didn't have the help they needed before they had to appear before me. So this is the time, people, this is the time now for us to make those investments. I know the Bronx is happy, and I'm standing here saying thank you to all of you for recognizing that the Bronx needs the help, and you're now giving it to us, and we stand ready, willing, and able to accept it and to engage in it to make our community safer. So thank you to the crisis management system. All of my teams are here. I see them all up here. We walk those streets, these anti-violence marches and everything is doing more than just marching. It's telling them that we love them and we care about them and we want to see them live. And I'm going to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to live, because this is about life and not the death that the guns are bringing. So thank you all for helping.
Thank you, D.A. Clark. You can always leave it to the boogie down to represent. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson. Where is she? Thank you so much. Our final speaker is the co-chair of this task force. And as the mayor said, you know, he's done this. This is his life's work. I've learned so much from him in this process, and I'm so grateful to be in partnership with him. AT, at his signature line, he has a quote. It's an African proverb, and it will tell you everything you need to know. The proverb says, "The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." And that's what this work is. It's making sure that the village is meeting the needs of the children. That's right. And thank you, AT, for what you do. Thank you. Come on up.
I'm going to liven this place up a little bit, Mayor, if it's all right with you. Because that's what we do in the CMS in our communities. We liven it up. We bring life. So repeat after me. There is more of us, than it is any of you. Say it again. There's more of us, than it is any of you. You see, there's many more of us, many more God fearing, law-abiding, tax-paying, school-going, kids playing people in this city than it is any criminal or anybody that wants to disrupt our lives with violence. Believe it or not, we have more money than they do. We really can invest our way out, and that's what I love about today. I want to thank you, Mayor Adams, my good friend, for choosing me to be a part of this task force. You know, this was a historic moment when he called on me because this hasn't been done before. I'm like others have said, I've worked in this work alongside so many other different administrations. I think I date back to Giuliani and then Bloomberg and then de Blasio and now with my brother Adams. And this has never been done before. This is an historic moment. Thank you to my first deputy mayor, Sheena Wright, my co-chair, who's been my partner at the task force level. I've learned so much from you, and it's been easier to work with you because you come from the nonprofit sector and you understand exactly what it is for us, those that are in the nonprofit sector. She gets it right away. That means this administration. Of course, I would love to acknowledge our great governor, Kathy Hochul, for being here this afternoon. It made a lot to us, a difference. We honestly had a different date, but because you were coming, we had to make sure that we make ourselves present. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Our Attorney General, Tish James, who we too go back very, very long, many years. I appreciate her consistency. She's always been who she says she is. And to see her as our State Attorney General gives me joy to know that I know the State Attorney General personally. Thank you so much, A.G. James. My good brother, my comrade, Public Advocate Williams, has been mentioned. We go back as well to before elected office. And now to see this brother go through the city council and emerge to the public advocate role, he's been a true voice of the people. And we've been on this task force journey before in the Bloomberg administration. And so we know exactly what it feels like. And we, as a city, we really appreciate you as well. To the borough presidents, I understand Borough President Gibson is present. Oh, that's what I love about my sister, because she and other BPs have been our partners, but no one more like BP Gibson, to be honest with you. She's a different borough president as it relates to this issue, when it relates to gun violence. And of course, our district attorneys, both Gonzalez and of course, Clark. I'm sorry, Darcel. But I apologize. My good sister, BX, of course, District Attorney Clark, and the deputy mayors of your administration, and Chief Advisor, of course, Ingrid Martin and others. I got a lot of thank yous to the Chancellor, my good brother, in the New York City Department of Public Schools, Chancellor Banks, and all of the commissioners that have been a part of this. But I do want to shout out a number of commissioners, one of which, Commissioner Vassan from our Department of Health and Mental Health and Hygiene, thank you so much. His agency has been on the front line. Our new commissioner of the police department, Commissioner Kapan, thank you so much. Congratulations. I get a chance to congratulate you. But no other commissioner, in my honest opinion, has been more honored than our commissioner of the Department of Youth and Community Development, Chief Howard. Thank you so much, FDM, for giving us Commissioner Howard. But more importantly, I want to thank my new colleagues, the men and women of the various city agencies of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. Those men and women that we've met over the past year, we've actually grown now to become colleagues. We've been in upper rooms. We've been working on the weekends. We've been going into the neighborhoods. And so those of you who have come out throughout those task force meetings, I see you, Jeff, and others, thank you so much for your time, Darryl, and of course, you know, my good brothers and friends, I can call you colleagues now. Thank you so much for your hard work. But I cannot, of course, not thank the mighty, courageous men and women of other than the New York City crisis management system. My partners who have been worked alongside of now for many, many years, those of you who walked over the Brooklyn Bridge with me, last year this time, you know, we came over to accept this charge from the mayor. We came over in the hundreds, if you remember. Outside, it was sweltering hot outside like it is this past week. But the men and women of the crisis management system, organizations had like Arisa Napa Williams, Aisha Sekou, my good brother Lance Furtado and Kay Bain, my other brother Gilly Delgado, and of course James Dobbin and others from Guns Down and Light Up. Can we give them a hand clap, please? Because of course, Pastor Monroe's, I cannot thank you all enough for just being my colleague as well and trusted in my leadership. So as I said, it's been a complete year. We've been having many meetings and, of course, citywide convenings. And, of course, I cannot close without thanking you and our FDM staff, Lemuria, Angelina, Linda, RT, and I know I've seen Jose somewhere in the crowd. But thank you. I see his hand right now. Good. I wanted to also publicly thank you all because y'all it's been hard coordinating this effort and you've been doing a fine job. Today is the day that we've all been waiting for. Just like the mayor's blueprint to end gun violence, the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force Action Plan is a detailed document that consists of 7 major strategies, all vetted and approved by this administration, and more importantly, by the top 6 communities within the 30 precincts responsible for more than 90% of the gun violence in New York City. Our plan that we are releasing today is just like the unlimited number of degrees and awards that we all here may have in our possession. It looks nice on paper, but will mean nothing, and I mean nothing, without the commitment and the dedication to apply the things that we have learned to produce this document. Words on paper without action are meaningless. This is why I'm extremely excited about being a partner of this administration that prides themselves as GSD, getting stuff done, in a nice way of saying it. As mentioned, we will eat the elephant in the room, one phase at a time. First, we're targeting the top 6 precincts, 2 of which I was raised, the 73rd and the 75th precinct, better known as my DA said, East New York and Brownsville, Brooklyn. But we're also targeting the other 4 up in the Bronx. These 6 because they are responsible for close to 30% of all the citywide homicides and shooting. That means that we're not leaving out the other precincts. This is just the first phase. This plan is also a living document whose ink will never completely dry because it is it will be interchangeable according to the uniqueness of each neighborhood that we have identified. No 2 neighborhood plans will mirror the other, but each plan will complement the other because we're going to learn from each of the plans as it rolls out. No longer will the neighborhoods and communities of our plan be historically last or least prioritized. Starting today and beyond, they are just like, I apologize. Starting today and beyond, it will be just the opposite. Just like in the news, they are the first mention as the top stories of the day and on the front page in your newspapers when it relates to gun violence and negatives, comments. If it bleeds, it leads. In our plan, we were very super focused on the overall prevention of gun violence from ever happening. We were more interested in the upstream things that can be done in order to end gun violence in the city. Communities highlighted in this plan will be prioritized and excused to the front of the line to receive the benefits from the city, billions of dollars of industry resources. In other words, the communities that would historically benefit last from our city bank of resources will now be expedited and be the first to be serviced via this plan. The neighborhood safety alliances that's a part of this plan of these precincts will be the watchdogs within the community to see their action plans throughout the implementation phase and watch them become reality. I am extremely, where's that plan? I am extremely confident in this plan because of the great minds of the men and women of the task force and the men and women and the boys and girls of the communities that help us create it. I'm even more confident in this plan because of this mayor and his administration's leadership that you see displayed behind me. And finally, I'm even more confident in this plan because of, as mentioned by our governor, because of the united forces from the city and the state that you see standing united here today. Without their unwavering partnerships, it would be impossible to end gun violence in this great city of New York. You know, just like the military have an armed forces, the military has the Marines, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force for a reason. We here in New York State also now have a united forces when it relates to fighting gun violence. And so I'm looking forward to working alongside of every one of you to make sure that these things become a reality. Thank you so much, Mayor Adams, again for the opportunity, and I look forward to continued work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Do a few on topic before we go to off topic. Can I see that guy over there, Fabian?
Mayor and also for the governor, can you enumerate specific metrics to see if the blueprint will be successful or not successful? Not just strategies, but actual metrics that we can hold you guys accountable to?
Hold us accountable. We're all in this together. It's not, it's not just me. It's not the folks here. It is the men and women of the media highlighting some of the good things we're doing, lifting up those people who are participating. Let's find room in your papers and your news stories of talking about the good news so we can start making people feel good about themselves and good about the city. So it's not just us. Because when a bullet leaves the barrel of the gun, it does not discriminate if you're a reporter or if you're a police officer. So what we are going to do, as we stated, we're going to look at those 30 precincts. We're going to start with the small number, and we want to see a substantial decrease in violence, an increase in employment, increase in services, increase in infrastructure. Those are the metrics that we're going to be looking at. How do we bring down the violence? Because we bring down the violence without increasing the opportunities, then we just bring it out, building a pipeline for a new generation of dealing with the violence that we're seeing.
Can you just get specifics to all?
When you say specifics, you want numbers? No, we don't have that. We already dropping the percentage decrease in shootings, percentage decrease in homicides, percentage decrease in the 7 major categories. We're giving you those percentage decreases, and for some reason, it's not finding its way on your pages. We're showing you the substantial decreases across the board. We had how many weeks, Commissioner? 17 weeks in a row of decreased violence in our city. And so we have the stats. It's more than stats. It's about the quality of life of New Yorkers. Because if you drop statistically, but the same communities are still having a steady flow of violence, what good is that? That is what we're doing. Go ahead, Fabian. Go ahead, baby.
The numbers have decreased around the city, but Staten Island has seen a 50% increase in shooting victims year to date. What unique challenges have there been in Staten Island, and what unique steps have you taken there?
Well, I think it's a combination of things that we're seeing. Listen, this overproliferation of guns in our city, both the AG and the governor talks about it. We don't manufacture them here. And the areas in Staten Island that we want to really zero in, we have a new precinct commander there that is extremely excited about how we go in and get on the ground and look at those target areas. Precision policing is what we're looking at. We have a great crisis management team over there. We have to get in there, identify who are the shooters, what are the services that are needed, and that is why, although we're focusing on the 30, that we're not going to ignore those areas where we're seeing some spikes in crime right now.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, about the $485 million, where's that coming from? Has the money already been allocated? Does it come from any particular agencies?
Yeah, just about every single agency you see represented here has resources in their budget. As 18 Metro said, these particular communities are being prioritized. So in the most recent adopted budget, there was an additional $40 million that was put in to bring us to that number. And so everything from New York City Public Schools, we're going to be extending the use of school buildings, providing more resources for the Project Pivot program, to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, to Small Business Services, every single agency. So there's a detailed breakdown that we'll be happy to share, as well as a detail of key performance indicators, which we are, as the mayor says, what's get measured gets done. So there's some clear indicators that are part of this plan as well.
485 is for FY24.
Yes.
And that's recurring?
Yes.
A lot of the education programs mentioned in the blueprint seem to be like expansions of existing programs. I'm curious if the city is committing to any new education programs that haven't been previously announced through the blueprint.
You said education program, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, education programs that like haven't been previously announced. Is there any new programs that the city is committing to today?
And when you talking about inside the school itself or just using the Department of Education? I just want to understand your question.
Yeah, they're administered by the education department.
A couple of things. One, the brilliant use of what Chancellor Banks is doing with Project Pivot. The extended use, we're allocating funding to keep our schools open longer for safer spaces for our children. And when you look through the blueprint, you're going to see some of the other initiatives that the chancellor's doing, even with the partnership that we're doing with Google, how we're leaning into our paid internship program. This is the holistic approach, and what the First Deputy Mayor is trying to share. Many of our agencies were not zeroing in on using their existing budgets to go after the holistic approach of ending the feeders of gun violence. We now have given a new charge that you are to look at your budget and make sure that you are buying into this overall plan and what are the feeders of ending gun violence. And that's what the Chancellor has done, and all of these agencies that are here are part of that overall plan. How are you, Marcia?
Mr. Mayor and the Police Commissioner Command have talked repeatedly about perception versus reality. You said the reality is that New York City is the safest big city in America.
Yes.
People don't believe that. How will this program change the random acts of violence that makes people believe that they're not safe?
Well, I don't know if I agree with you that people don't feel like they're safe, because when you have 56 million tourists in our city, when we're capping out at 4 million riders on our subway system, no one wanted to get on this train. Remember Governor back before we did our subway safety plan? I'm out this weekend in the parks. These random acts of violence shake our confidence, but it does not paralyze us. And I am seeing every day as I walk the streets, on the subway system, in our parks, going out and moving about, people are saying, Eric, we see a difference. Now, when you have an incident like we saw over the weekend where this young man was experiencing that hate crime and we will find the person responsible, it shakes our confidence. When you have someone that randomly assaults someone because they have a real mental health issue on the streets, it shakes your confidence. When you have 8.5 million people in the city, you're going to have from time to time random acts of violence. And we must address that. And part of doing that is revitalizing these communities and having our young people play a role in that revitalization. It's the safest big city in America. We continue to drive down crime even more. Uh, we don't like these, these random acts of violence that we witness. The commissioner and I, we would talk and say, this really gets in the way of the overall energy that people have of, the city has recovered. This city has recovered. And we're going to do everything we can to go after those random acts of violence, those people who are extremely dangerous. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to continue to do it. But in a city of this size, are you going to have random acts of violence? I don't know. Yeah, even when people say this was, crime was at its lowest, I don't know a year that we didn't have those random acts of violence in the city. But I keep going back to, what many people don't want to acknowledge, that everyone talked about Giuliani being this symbol of safe. Right now, his last year, we are substantial percentages lower in crimes than when his last year was, and he used draconian measures. We did not use draconian measures, and we're safe. So if the symbol was safe back then what does that make me?
For the deputy mayor, where's the 40 million being put into of these 7 strategies? And then also for the governor, the 6 million that the state's contributing, whereabouts is that going to go in here?
Well, you got to rush yourself. You got to rush yourself. We'll give you those exact numbers. We'll give you exact 40 million, and with the 6 million, we want to thank Governor for the 6 million. We'll give you those exact numbers. Fabian, we get it to you. You guys talk every day, so he'll make sure you get it. Okay. Someone in the back. Yes.
Obviously a united front on gun violence. What message does it send, intentionally or unintentionally, to the rest of the country, Democrats nationally, Republicans nationally, ahead of 2024, that New York State is doing something about gun violence?
Well, New York, we lead in so many ways, and we have communicated with our state, our federal partners, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Leader Schumer. They have been partners, and it clearly shows everyone is saying that Democrats are soft on crime. And that's just not the reality. When you look at some of the gun bills that have been unable to get through Congress, it's the Republicans that's blocking them. When we want to fund some important initiatives around supporting police with resources, the Republicans, they continue to block them. I say to the Dems all the time, you have a good product. You have to make sure people know of the product. I think it's a mistake not to sell the good product that we have as Democrats. So I think this is the right message, and the partnership we have on the federal level has helped us to do the things that we're doing. And Senator Schumer and Congressman Jeffries have been real leaders in that area. Governor, you want to touch on that?
You can't say you're serious about fighting crime if you're not serious about getting illegal guns off our streets. And that is the difference between blue states and red states, and the statistics bear it out. Right now, we have 4.1 homicides per 100,000 residents. The average is about 7 homicides per 100,000, and it is concentrated in the Democratic states, where crime is lower than in the states where they're not worried and taking seriously the specter of gun violence. And until everyone, every leader of this nation, every governor, Democrat or Republican, takes seriously the fact that people are dying in all of our streets, not Democratic streets, but all of our streets, then we will not have a solution. This calls for a federal response, but also every governor can have a red flag law. Every governor can invest in violence disruption program. Every governor can make sure that they're focusing on mental health. Every governor can focus on education and health and making sure our police and our district attorneys have the resources they need. And that is the message we're sending across this nation, because Democrats, Democratic-led states and mayors are focused on one thing, and that is keeping our citizens safe.
Because, CJ, yeah. Ingrid told me to make sure I get you. You know what I'm saying?
And with the understanding that it's often too late to get to a 17 or 18-year-old kid, can you please tell us your thoughts on the importance of discouraging 9, 10, 11-year-old black and brown boys And with the understanding that you've got worried grandmas and moms and pops that are going to be on the stoops this evening, what this plan does to address that?
Leaning into, I think one of the most significant things that the chancellor has done, he knows that we have a captured audience with our children. And prior to his arrival, we were not going after the crisis management type organizations. With Project Pivot, we rolled that out last year. It was about how do we get into the schools and engage our young people at an early age. And there has to be some real results. You know, you can't, if we're dealing with the issue of a child is not in school or high absentee rates, we can't have people continue to provide services and they're not turning around what the issues are. And so I am really looking towards the chancellor and what he's doing around Project Pivot, what he's doing around after school programs. We have to, in a very a soft way, introduce the whole aspect of developing the full personhood of our children, and public safety is one of them. And I'm leaning on him to accomplish that task, because that's where our children are. Our children are in schools, after school programs, organizations. We are really leaning on the chancellor to help with that deep level of prevention that we're talking about. And you know, this is full circle for me. A lot of people don't realize the whole concept of CMS in this state came from my sponsoring of Operation Snugs, Gun Cross Backwards. The first $5 million came through me as a state senator. So I went from $5 million to over $400 million. But this is consistency. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. I've been doing this for a little bit. Okay. Okay. Thank you all. We'll do a few more stuff. Thank you. No, I'm good.
Report over the weekend in the New York Post about prostitution in Queens. Can you talk to me a little bit about why this hasn't been targeted as much? Since according to that reporting, there's only been 6 prosecuted arrests along that area that leads, and what you're going to do about it is something like that can lead to more crime.
Yeah, no, and I concur with you. I was out there last week, I think it was Thursday. I was out there, and about 1 a.m., 2 in the morning, because I wanted to get an observation of what was happening. And there is a plaza that's there where there was illegal vending and just dangerous food service. And then I walked along, can we try to move that out? Then I walked along Roosevelt Avenue under the L line, and it was clear. There was open prostitution. It was just filthy. And there was just a state of disorder. I called the precinct commander who came to meet me over there. We walked together. I was with Assistant Commissioner Daughtry, and we put in place a plan, reached out to the commissioner of DSNY, Commissioner Tisch, immediately went there to deal with the illegal vending, the trash issue, and now we're putting in place an operation to deal with the sex workers. Now, mind you, while I see the dangers of sex workers and the health issue and some of the violence and some of the sex trafficking, there are those in government who are trying to push to legalize it. I disagree with it then, I disagree with it now. And as long as the law is illegal, we're going to put an operation in to go and deal with this. Well, let me finish. Did I answer your question? Yeah, go ahead.
So with some of these women who have been exploited for men trafficking, are there any plans or any programs in place to sort of stand up services around them so that they can reintegrate without necessarily going through the criminal justice system?
You know, people like to believe that sex workers is a victimless crime. That is not true. As borough president, I work with young ladies who were the victim of sex trafficking. And so our goal is to go in, communicate with the sex workers, give them the services that they need. Someone did a good story in one of your tabloids over the weekend talking about someone who was able to get out because the pimp was forcing them. The conditions are horrendous. And we want to also go after the John because the demand is creating the supply. And far too often the Johns get away with what they're doing, but we have zeroed in on it. What I saw over there was horrendous, and we cannot allow that to continue. And many of those women are victims of aggressive, dangerous pimps that are forcing them into this occupation, and we're not going to allow that to happen.
Last week the NYPD said they're going to expand encryption out citywide across our radio frequencies. They've already started with 6 precincts in Brooklyn North. And the city council came out and criticized them for not having a plan to include the press in this. They said they're...
To include the what?
The press.
Okay.
And the public. They said they're considering their options right now, but we're not exactly specific about what that would look like. I mean, what do you think of that? What do you think of the criticism?
Well, listen, everything we do is, the foundation is public safety. And as someone reported over this weekend, our GLAs are through the roof. Bad guys are smarter than people think they are. And if we want to figure out a way how not only are the everyday press, public, the citizen apps, etc., but bad guys are looking at this. They can see when we're responding to a crime. They know when it's reported. We have to make sure we find that proper balance, and that's what we're going to do. So I understand the city council may have an opinion on this. I got it. You know, others may have an opinion on it. I have to make sure that bad guys don't continue to be one up on us so that we can go after some of these very dangerous people that are in the city. A small number of people are creating a lot of violence, and we have to get it right, and that's what we're doing right now.
Hi, Mayor.
How are you?
I have a question about reporting by the New York Times on DocGo's contract to provide migrant services and concerns over their approach. Why did the city pick a company with such limited experience in the area of migrant
Now you said limited in experience in handling. I'm sorry, they were what?
DocGo worked on COVID and the pandemic and sending doctors out, but now they're working on migrant services. So why did you select them, and do you still have confidence in them?
First, let me answer the latter. Yes, I still have confidence in them. They've done an amazing job for us. I mean, we're talking about, what we up to, 92,000? 93,000 people. 93,000 people that have gone through our city and having to do this. They did an amazing job during COVID, which we were pleased with. Mobilization, deployment, moving people around is a skill to it. And so I don't know for the cost analysis, for the quality of the product. I'm over at the Roosevelt Hotel. I'm at different locations that they are, and I'm seeing a level of professionalism. Now, when you have thousands of employees, are you going to find one or two that's going to do something wrong? Yes, you are. And then you have to take appropriate actions based on them doing something wrong. But to state this entire organization that helped us navigate COVID and now helping us navigate this humanitarian crisis, that I don't have confidence in them. No, I have confidence in them, and we're gonna scrutinize them. We're gonna make sure, here's your contract, here are the services. If you do something wrong, we're gonna bring you in and say you have to correct it. But they've done a Herculean job of this humanitarian crisis that we're facing.
Mayor, on the topic of the migrant situation, we see migrants sleeping on sidewalks in the last few days. Obviously, it's very hot. The federal government says they're sending a liaison to New York. Is that enough for you?
No, it's not. I've been consistent and clear, and we had a meeting with our city council, our state lawmakers, and others who we had a good, healthy conversation. And I've been saying this, many of you have been here with me, that eventually this was going to come to a neighborhood near you. And it is. 91,000 people. What we have done in comparison to other cities is just remarkable. And having someone embedded is a good start. That came from the Secretary of Homeland Security. We want to thank him. But I've been very clear on what we need. We need to allow people to work. And there's nothing more anti-American than you can't work. We need to control the border. We need to call a state of emergency, and we need to properly fund this national crisis. There were some good things that came out of the meeting with the congressional delegation. I want to really thank Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffries for both bringing everyone to the table, entire New York delegation. But we need help. We need help, and it's not going to get any better. From this moment on, it's downhill. There is no more room. I was at the Roosevelt on Saturday, and I went there on Sunday. Lined up around the block, hurting the businesses there. This is not going to get better. We put buses there for cooling systems, but it's just not sustainable. And I want to take my hat off to Assemblywoman Raj Kumar and those 54 electors that signed on a letter together to really say that New York does not deserve this.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I wanted to follow up on that. So you have been very clear about wanting the decompression strategy, wanting faster work authorizations. What are you hearing on that? What is the impediment? And are you thinking about, is there another fourth idea? Fourth idea. I mean, there's money, there's work authorizations, there's the decompression strategy, but we haven't heard anything from Washington. We've gotten some more money, but we haven't heard anything on work authorizations or decompression. What's the problem? What's the holdup? And is there a fourth idea that you want to put to them?
Yeah, number one, we have not got money. Out of the $850 million that Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffrey was able to push through, we got $30 million. And there were bordering states that received more money than us, and they're using the money to bus people to New York. I mean, if this wasn't so sad, it would be funny. And we were promised an additional allocation of money. We have not gotten that yet. But when you look at the dollar amount that we are spending, it dwarfs our needs. And so, to go to a fourth or fifth when we haven't gotten the foundational things is just throwing out more things. I've been very clear. If I can get work authorization, this would be a substantial game changer for us because we have a lot of jobs that need to be filled. We could take people out of the shadows of the black market. We could hire throughout the entire states. My partners in government are saying, Eric, we're willing to help, but we can't have people just come and sit around. And so work authorization, my congressional delegation is calling for it. My local electeds are calling for it. We're all calling for it. We need a response from Washington, and I have not gotten a yay or nay, and we need it.
Mayor, did you talk to Eric Ulrich in a way that made you think that you were warning him about an investigation into him? And had you heard any rumors about his, alleged gambling addiction? And if so, why would you promote him up the chain?
Well, first of all, I was reading that article. I felt like it was a reboot of Goodfellas. Come on. Listen, I made it clear. You sent out my statement, right? Okay. I had no knowledge of his investigation. No one from the police department. No one from the DA's office. I mean, why would it make sense to appoint someone the commissioner if you know they're on the criminal investigation? Yeah, a lot of people raised a lot of money for me. I had thousands of donors. I outraised everybody that was in the race for the most part. So no, that's the bottom line. No, and I don't know. The DA has his job. I have my job, and let me tell you something. All my books that I've read about mayors, administration, previous administration, presidential administrations, there was something I walked away with before becoming mayor. You can be distracted, and you could be busy answering the same questions over and over again. I have an entire city to run during the most challenging times, and I'm not going to be distracted. And you've been on the campaign trail. The words are the same. Stay focused, no distractions, and grind. I'm not going to be distracted. I got to navigate this wonderful city out of the challenges we're facing. And if y'all want to acknowledge it or not, I'm doing a damn good job.
Mr. Mayor, when you were at the Roosevelt Hotel, did you see migrants sleeping on cardboard boxes, sleeping in vans overnight? Your staffer said that it was a temporary location in these vans for them to stay. Is that acceptable? You said that you don't want New York to turn into a San Francisco or a Seattle. And what else are you considering? Are you considering parks, perhaps more tents in city parks?
So here's where we are right now. Yes, there were people sleeping in cooling vans. There were people along the sidewalk. We have to localize this madness. We have to figure out a way of how we don't have what's in other municipalities where you have tent cities all over the city. We have to, our next phase of this strategy, now that we have run out of room, we have to figure out how we're going to localize the inevitable that there's no more room indoors. And we have to figure that out, and that's what I got the team working on right now. And when we roll out the next phase of this, I'm going to publicly announce it. But I can assure you that this city is not going to look like other cities where there are tents up and down every street.
I mean, you guys just
Come on, but I like burning it.
will we have more tents in? Will there be more tents in parking lots? Or again, like I said, are you considering massive locations, say Central Park, Bryant Park?
We're going to roll out the next phase of our operation. We're going to publicly let it be known. Fabian hates when I.
Mr. Mayor, I wonder if you think your failure to get any help from Washington is the victim of presidential election year politics. Because the president looks at New York and says, it's Blue York, people are going to vote for me anyway, but they need, for example, like Arizona, a borderline state where if you help New York, they're not going to be happy there. So is he ignoring the needs of New York because he wants to get elected president and he thinks he needs borderline states that could help him?
I'm not sure what's the logic. You know, his campaign team is putting that together, but it's clear that the congressional delegation and the Senate understand how important this is for New York City, and they have been extremely responsive, and I cannot thank them enough to put together the meeting that they did with the Secretary of Homeland Security, and so I'm not sure of the strategy of their administration. This could impact the thoughts of how we're handling this crisis, but I'm not sure on it. I have no idea. All I know is we need help. This is not sustainable, and there's going to be a drastic impact on the city financially, as well as just the morale of our recovery. Okay.